Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video, and just want to give you guys an update. Blackmagic actually let me have the Ursa Mini Pro 12K for another week, and so if you have any remaining questions for this, I'm starting to wrap up this video to be posted next Friday. Don't forget to comment down below and make sure you're subscribed so you get notified when this comes out. But today I want to talk about my new favorite piece of software that I stumbled upon through a Instagram ad. And this piece of software is called set.a.light 3D. It's made by a company called 𝗚𝗚𝗙𝗙. Now what this software does is basically allows you to create a basic 3D set or 3D environment where you may be shooting, and it allows you to set up different lights and reflectors and modifiers and cameras and actors, and basically give you a realistic preview of what that lighting setup is going to look like. Now to me this is huge because one of the things that I've battled with over the years is knowing exactly what lights to set up in which way. You see, when I'm filming in my own studio for my own YouTube videos, I'm not really under any too much time pressure. I can pretty much play around with the lights, see what works, what doesn't work, what I like, what I don't like. But if I'm going to film with like a client, for example, and we have a very strict deadline and schedule for what that shoot day looks like, and even if it is a little bit more loose, you still have people waiting around while you're trying to figure out where to set up lights. The other logistical issue with playing around with lights is when you're by yourself, it can just take a lot of effort to try something new. I mean, this new set that I created here took quite a few hours of playing around with different lights, different softbox sizes, grid, no grid. And so that's where a software like this comes into play, because you can basically do all of that testing and playing around on your computer without having to physically move any light stands around and instantly see what sort of final result you're going to get. So what I want to show you guys real quick today is how accurate this software actually is. So what I want to do first is go on the computer, go on the piece of software, and create kind of a basic set that is a little bit more unique. And I want to use maybe a mix of different color temperatures or different colors in general and do something a little bit more dramatic. Set everything up, and then I'll be able to actually save the lighting layout that you can print out or save to your phone. And then in real life, I'm going to copy the exact settings. It'll be a fun little test. So let's get to it. Hey, we're on my computer and lighting's terrible. Only set of one light. So that's going to look all dramatic, but that's fine. We're not here for my face, and it goes to the wrong screen. Boom. Here we go. We have set.a.light all set up here. And again, I'm not going to go through the entire interface, but basically the gist of it is over here is kind of your work area where you can completely design the 3D room. And then on the right side here, you have basically a preview pane of what the camera is seeing. And so if I move this around, can change the angles. I can go tripod up, tripod down, and you have all these camera controls. And by the way, if all the buttons look super small to you, it's because we're on my 5K monitor. If you have like a 1080p or 4K monitor, the buttons look a lot bigger. So the software seems to have a little bit of a scaling issue on ultra high res monitors, but it's personally fine by me. I don't really care. But yeah, you can change between full frame, different crop factors, aspect ratios, your shutter speed, pretty much the entire thing, right? So let's go ahead and get set up. I'm actually going to delete these lights. So let's zoom out here. So what we're going to do is I actually have a orange backdrop. So what I did is kept the default backdrop, and they have a bunch of like actual colors here. All right, so they have Savage, which I believe mine is Savage. I got the orange one. Cool. And that's actually not going to be the main focus. I'm going to move this back here, move our dude. And what's cool is you can totally customize everything about this person. And then if we go into posing mode, you can like do everything. I mean, these are like fully rigged bodies. So you can do some pretty crazy things with it. So across the bottom, we can see all of our different lights and modifiers. Again, a lot of this is going to be for still photography. But if you go to permanent lighting, again, we can see our sky panels. We can see our different ARRI lights. Got some other panels over here. Looks like Kino flows. And then looks like we have a Aperture 300D. Yep, 300D Mark II. We got Titan tube lights, got ring lights, all the basic necessities. And so I don't have Titan tubes, but the Pavo tubes should give off a pretty similar vibe. So first things first, let's go ahead and get a 300D because I use Nanlite lights, but they're COBs, so it should do the trick. Now, can I add a modifier to this? All right, so you can't add like a softbox onto the light. So what I did in the past is I would just grab one of these like photography domes, one that would have like the relative size of my permanent light. And it wouldn't be exact, but kind of the trick. For this one, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try... All right, so I want this kind of to the side of me. I'm going to put it further back because under the helper, so I have diffusion panel. First, let me get my framing here. I want to be at I'm going to say a 45. And then you can, of course, change the intensity of the light. Oh, nice. Yep, you can change the reduction. So this was actually 3 stops. It's actually a quarter of a stop. What am I at? 180 degree. Oh, there's my issue. I'm at F8. So I'm going to go like F4. There we go. That's starting to look more normal. I really like the performance of this too. You can see when I start to drag around lights, the preview pane in the right kind of goes real bad quality for a second. And then when I let go of everything, it kind of goes back to its 1080p preview. I'm actually going to add a negative fill right here because I don't want that spill. You can see that when I remove it, it's spilling onto the background, and I want to light that separately. All right, so now we got a basic setup going on right there. So I'm not really liking the strength that this is putting out here. Just going to delete that. All right, so let's say we just throw another spotlight on it. And we're going to turn down the intensity. I'm going to say like, and we'll keep the light stand in frame. I kind of dig it. And then on this side of the face, I want kind of a mixed color temperature. So let's see, is there any like RGB? I'm going to take a sky panel because this is similar to a RGB light that I have. I'm going to bring that intensity down a bunch. And we're going to go on off a blue light maybe. And then what if we take a light tube on this side, just out of frame, if I did red. Alrighty, people, we kind of have the setup. This is kind of what I'm going to go for, I guess. And so if I go to the export section here, we can see that I want to export. Does this make like a PDF or something? And yeah, just like we saw, it's not super high res or anything. Maybe I can adjust those settings, but all right, so now time to see if we do this exact setup in real life, how close will it look to this? Alrighty, first step. We have the Blackmagic Pocket 6K set up, given the good old 12K arrest. We have the IRIX 45mm Cine lens on top. Already time to lower this guy. By the way, I already know someone's going to comment about all the crap on my shirt. Just noticed that. It's called having kids, and I don't really care. I'm not changing it for the video, so deal with it. But let's see. We're trying to match this guy right here so we can see part of the wall, so it's not the entire backdrop, so it's kind of at an angle. So let's move this where, oh, pretty close. So we can see on this graph here that our main settings here, oh man, I totally butchered that. Rookie mistake. ISO 100. Wasn't thinking. It's late. Well, here goes nothing. We are now at ISO 100 and T4 right on the money. Alrighty, so we have all the basic lights set up. Now the most important thing is to kill all the other sources. Kill the overtop lights. Have our orange background, check. A light shooting onto the background, check. Have a tube light with a red hue, boom. We have a what would be sky panel, check. And we have our source, which technically, I know I set this up to do this going through diffusion and then having a bounce, but softbox will do. So the very last thing that I did from the computer is I went around to all the lights and put them on the exact intensity levels that it showed on the computer. If I were to sit down in front of that camera and show the angle, hopefully the focus is pretty decent. This isn't looking exactly right. So the reason this isn't looking exactly like it is in the set.a.light software is because, as I mentioned before, I'm only using lights that are relatively close to the ones in the software. And this is where the lack of video current equipment list on there is kind of a con, because while this does get me very close and that makes me feel like the software is still useful, you do have to compensate for the different specifics of the lights. For example, my key light is a 500 watt, not a 300D, a 300 watt from Aperture. It's also going through a softbox, and which is a different level of diffusion. Tube light, this light, they're all different power output settings, and so I'm gonna have to dial it in more and kind of just play around with the intensities of all the lights in order to get it as close as I can to the one in the software. So let me dial it in and see if I can get it a little bit closer with some playing around. So I'd say that I have it locked in to be as close as I can probably get it, with just around 5 extra minutes of playing around with the intensities. I also changed up the angles a little bit. This I moved more towards the edge, so that way you can actually, it's catching more of the orange background. The blue light was a little too much in front of me, so now it's more directly on the side. Also lowered the intensity. I moved the red light here a little bit further away, so it was a little less intense, and honestly it's almost a little disappeared, so I probably could bring it back or raise the intensity slightly. And then my big key light is essentially on like 2% intensity. Even that's still looking a little bit strong, but yeah, this is kind of the setup. I definitely think that the set.a.light software helped. It allowed me to understand what the style was going to look like, but because I didn't use the exact make and models of the lights in there, you do have to play around with the intensities a bit, but it gets you about 90% of the way there. Pretty cool. So there you guys have it. What do you think about this piece of software? Do you think it was pretty close? Do you think it was pretty far off and I still had to tweak things? Like I said before, all of this stuff will be linked down in the description below if you want to check it out. Don't forget to come back next week for my big Blackmagic 12K video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.